Tim Smith, Regional Director of JRS Southern Africa. Just wanted to brief you a little bit about the situation in Angola. In 2017, we had a huge civil strife in the Congo, in the province of Kasai, and a large number of refugees moved into Angola, into the Lunda Norte Province, which is here, the northeast corner of Angola. About 35,000 refugees within a period of 2 or 3 weeks, in a fairly desperate condition, all of them. They were eventually moved to a refugee camp to the west of Dundo, a place called Lovua, which was really out in the bush. There was nothing there before the camp. And eventually 24,000 of them settled into this camp, which was made out of the bush really by the Angolan government. We were then partners of UNHCR, and we participated in the work of the camp. We ran 4 schools, we did psychosocial work, we did legal protection work, and a fair number of other works which we don't normally do, for example, like burying the dead. Those people stayed there for 2 years, and then after the election in the Congo last year, they began to agitate to return, and many of them began to feel that it was safe to return to the DRC. There was ongoing negotiations between the UNHCR and the government of Angola and of DRC, but many of the people were impatient and they were not willing to wait for the formal repatriation. And so in August of this year, 2019, about 14,000 of them began to spontaneously return to the Congo. They in fact began to walk from the refugee camp here back towards Dundo with the aim of eventually arriving in the Congo. The Angolan army provided trucks because people can't walk that huge distance, especially when they're carrying so many things. And many of those people were transported to the border, a place called Kulambambuji, which is right on the border with DRC. But there was nothing prepared for them there, nothing. No food, no medical care, nothing. So in fact, many of them are still stuck on the border. They haven't actually moved any further. The formal repatriation, the formal voluntary repatriation was agreed to between the UNHCR, the government of Angola, and the government of the DRC to begin in this month, October. And it did actually begin last week with a very small group, which were then sent from the Lovua camp back into the Congo to a place called Nashiri. We as JRS, we were asked to help with the repatriation, and our job was to provide the overnight shelter the night before the repatriation. So there's a compound created within the camp, and in that compound we feed the people, we give them a hot meal, and then we divided them, men separate from women and children, and they had a place to sleep for the night, and they had facilities for washing and so on. And meanwhile the trucks were loaded up in order to proceed the next morning. And we were in Angola last week and we managed to visit that. We saw the JRS team providing meals, preparing the place and so on, and preparing the trucks. And then the following morning we accompanied them, the first convoy, which left from Lóvua, came to Dundo, and then it drove north to the border with DRC to a place called Nashiri. Unfortunately, the road which they chose is a very poor road, and it's the rainy season now in Angola, so the road was made even worse. So what happened is that many of the trucks became stuck, so the progress was very, very slow. When we left Angola, in fact, 2 days after the beginning of the repatriation, they had not yet returned. The trucks had not yet returned, which means that they were still delivering people on the other side. And we know that the next lot have not even yet moved. So it's going to be a very slow process. We don't know how it will proceed. There's probably another 3,000 or 4,000 people that want to return to Congo over the next few weeks. So we'll have to just see how it happens. But we will be playing a role as much as we can in accompanying them. That's a question that we don't know the answer to. Many of them are saying that they don't want to go back to their original homes where they came from because maybe the homes are destroyed, maybe they still fear violence, they want to go to towns instead. But of course that's very risky as well because they don't know where they will stay when they arrive at the towns, they don't know what the reception will be. There are all sorts of unknowns in this, and that's what makes it a very risky enterprise. I think there are two reasons why people want to go back. One is, on the Congolese side, there was a peaceful election, and the person who is now president is someone who they feel is on their side. Conditions have changed very much from what it was in 2017. And that they have been made promises. When they come back, they will receive houses, they will receive food, they will receive even cash. Whether the promises will be kept or not is another question. So that's one side. The other side of the question is the conditions in Angola have not been great for them. They were put in a refugee camp which is really far from any town or village. There are no facilities there. There's no electricity, there's no water. They have to build their own homes, they had to do their own farming, they had to make their own living, so it was quite difficult where they were. And also the Angolan army and the police have harassed them to a certain extent. So if they've been, for example, if they've been in the towns and villages and they don't have documents, they've often been arrested. So although the government of Angola did receive them and eventually put them in a camp, the reception has been not always very warm. Home is home.